The galaxy was quiet in this distant sector, a stretch of stars that most species had long ignored. It was not particularly beautiful or remarkable by cosmic standards, just a place where planets drifted in their lonely orbits. But to the Xyler, explorers of countless worlds, any unusual reading on their scanners was worth checking. That's how they found it: a faint, irregular energy signature coming from a planet that was supposed to be barren. At first, they thought it was a mistake. The readings were weak, almost imperceptible. Whoever had built anything here had done it very quietly. The Xyler were used to detecting entire civilizations from light years away, the hum of cities, the energy consumption of machines, the faint communication signals that marked a planet as inhabited. But this? It was subtle, almost invisible. That in itself made them curious. As they approached, their long, sleek craft glided silently over the surface. From orbit, the planet looked like a desert. Brownish-gray rocks stretched in all directions, with little water and sparse vegetation. By all accounts, it should not have been able to support life, certainly not intelligent life. Yet the readings insisted otherwise. Then they saw it, tiny structures dotting the landscape. At first, it looked like a scattered camp, small enough that it could almost be missed if someone wasn't looking closely. But the patterns were organized. The buildings were arranged with thought, not randomness. And that was impossible. Or at least, the Xyler thought it was impossible. The ship's sensors began scanning the buildings and the surrounding area. Surprisingly, the energy readings weren't from machines or large-scale power sources. It was people. The sensors detected life forms that were moving, working, even communicating. Though the signals were strange, and unlike anything the Xyler had cataloged before, the Xyler had explored hundreds of planets, met countless species, and seen forms of intelligence that ranged from hive-minded beings to solitary thinkers. Yet nothing prepared them for humans. The readings indicated beings who were adaptable, resourceful, and energetic, and they were thriving where no one thought they could. When the explorers decided to descend, the humans noticed immediately. From the ground, they looked up at the craft with curiosity rather than fear. The humans were cautious, but there was no panic. Their settlement was unusual. It was a combination of makeshift shelters and surprisingly sophisticated buildings, built from materials that seemed to come from the planet itself. Some structures were simple, functional, while others were clearly experiments in engineering and design. The Xyler observed as humans moved about. They were busy, working together in teams, often solving problems as they appeared. When a machine broke, they fixed it quickly. When they needed food or water, they adapted and improvised. There was a sense of order, but not in a rigid, programmed way. It was alive. It was intelligent, creative, and flexible. From orbit, the Xyler were amazed by the humans' energy. In the silence of space, life usually followed predictable patterns. But humans were unpredictable in the best way. Their actions seemed to flow from thought, instinct, and collaboration, not mere habit. They built, repaired, explored, and shared responsibilities as if every individual mattered. The Xyler had studied societies that were efficient, even brilliant, but there was something different here. Something almost inspiring. Deciding it was safe enough, the Xyler opened communication channels. A low-frequency hum resonated through the air, a language they hoped would reach the humans. The humans paused in their work, tilting their heads, listening. Then, slowly, one of them taller than the others, with careful, precise movements, approached the landing site. There was no fear, no immediate hostility, only curiosity. The Xyler sent images and sounds showing that they were explorers, not invaders. The human who approached didn't understand at first, but their gestures showed comprehension. They repeated simple motions, trying to mimic the Xyler's language. Soon, basic communication was established. The humans smiled, or the closest equivalent of a smile the Xyler could interpret, and gestured for them to follow. Walking among the humans, the Xyler noticed their ingenuity. Tools and machines were everywhere, but not in the way of large cities or industrial complexes. Each device was practical, often multi-purpose, sometimes surprisingly elegant. Even small children participated in daily tasks, learning from observation and experience rather than being instructed in formal ways. The colony ran like a living organism, each person playing a role, each role adapting as needed. The planet itself was unforgiving. Water was scarce, the soil rocky, and weather unpredictable. Yet the humans had found ways to collect, store, and purify water. They had built shelters that insulated them from storms, harvested food from the land without destroying it, and created systems to recycle and reuse everything. The Xyler realized that humans didn't just survive, they flourished. They were creative in the face of adversity, turning obstacles into opportunities. As the Xyler continued observing, one thing became clear. These humans were not hiding because they feared other species. They were hidden because they chose to build their lives quietly, carefully, away from interference. They didn't need the approval of outsiders. They had mastered self-reliance and cooperation, blending technology, skill, and adaptability in ways the Xyler had never seen before. It was remarkable how humans celebrated small successes. A repair completed, a new crop harvested, a challenge overcome. Each was acknowledged with laughter, gestures, and shared joy. They didn't compete for status or dominance, but rather for the well-being of the group. It was a system that seemed simple, but was incredibly effective. The Xyler, with their analytical minds, struggled to predict the outcomes of human interactions. They could anticipate behavior from any species they had encountered before, but humans? Unpredictable, inventive, and surprisingly empathetic. Even from orbit, it was clear. Humans were special. Not in the sense of superior technology or raw power. They were not the strongest or the fastest, but in resilience, creativity, and spirit. The Xyler's instruments could measure energy outputs and biological processes, but they could not quantify adaptability, courage, or ingenuity. And humans had all of these in abundance. The longer the Xyler stayed, the more they realized that this small colony was not just surviving, it was evolving. The humans constantly experimented, learned from mistakes, and improved their systems. Each generation added new ideas, new solutions, new ways to make life better. Even children contributed to the collective knowledge, guided not by strict orders, but by curiosity and observation. By the end of their first day among humans, the Xyler were both amazed and humbled. These were beings that could exist in harsh conditions, invent solutions on the fly, cooperate in ways that no algorithm could predict, and maintain a sense of joy and community while doing it. They weren't just a colony. They were a testament to what life could achieve when determination, intelligence, and cooperation came together. As the Xyler prepared to leave orbit, they recorded everything they had seen. Their superiors would be stunned. Humans were supposed to be a young, struggling species confined to a single planet in a crowded solar system. No one expected them to thrive in isolation, to create a functional, harmonious society where survival was a daily challenge. The discovery would change how the Xyler viewed humanity forever. And, for the first time, they felt something unfamiliar in their circuits: a deep, inexplicable respect for these unpredictable, remarkable beings who called themselves human. The humans watched the alien craft hover above the settlement, curiosity written clearly in their movements. They did not run, shout, or hide. Instead, they continued their work while keeping an eye on the strange visitors, as if trying to understand them without fear. To the Xyler, this calmness was unexpected. Most species they had encountered would have panicked or attacked immediately, assuming any unknown presence was a threat. Humans did neither. When the landing platform lowered, a few humans approached, their steps steady, cautious, but confident. They carried nothing that could be seen as a weapon, only tools and supplies from their daily tasks. One of the humans lifted a hand in a gesture that seemed to say, "We mean no harm," and then began mimicking the gestures the Xyler had made. It was a simple, careful attempt at communication. The Xyler's sensors were designed to detect signals, but human communication was unlike anything they had processed before. Their sounds, their movements, their facial expressions, all of it carried meaning in ways that could not be fully captured by technology. Yet they could feel the intention behind the humans' actions: curiosity, friendliness, and intelligence. The Xyler had encountered species that were logical, some that were aggressive, others that were cooperative. But these humans combined intelligence with intuition in a way that seemed almost alive. A low hum emanated from the Xyler's craft, a universal signal they used when approaching unknown civilizations. It was meant to convey peaceful intent. The humans paused, tilted their heads, and watched carefully. One of the humans stepped closer, then crouched to touch a patch of ground, as if introducing themselves to the planet itself before addressing the newcomers. It was a gesture that the Xyler could not understand at first, yet it somehow carried meaning: respect, care, connection. The humans spoke, though the Xyler did not understand their words. Their tone was calm, melodic, and deliberate, conveying meaning through rhythm and pitch rather than specific sounds. The Xyler repeated the process, creating vibrations and patterns that mirrored the humans' gestures and tones. Slowly, a basic understanding formed. It was primitive, but enough to convey the simple concept of peace. The humans led the Xyler through their settlement, moving through streets that were wide enough for people to walk comfortably, but narrow enough to encourage interaction. The buildings were a mix of natural materials and clever engineering. Some were small and simple, perfect for individual use, while others were larger communal spaces. Everything was functional, but carefully crafted. The Xyler noticed that even small details, like water channels or ventilation openings, were designed with purpose, efficiency, and care. Everywhere the Xyler looked, humans were working together. A group lifted a heavy piece of equipment, adjusting it with surprising coordination. Children ran between tasks, helping where they could, learning from older humans without formal instruction. When a tool broke, another human examined it, repaired it, and improved it, often making it stronger or more efficient than before. The Xyler had seen species survive in harsh environments, but this was different. Humans did not merely adapt, they thrived. They treated obstacles not as limitations, but as opportunities for improvement. Rocks and sand that would have made life difficult were used to build walls, create tools, and collect water. They used every resource available, leaving nothing to waste, yet always looking for better ways to do things. It was not just the human skill that amazed the Xyler. It was their attitude. They celebrated small successes together. When a task was completed, they clapped hands, smiled, and laughed. They communicated with gestures, expressions, and sounds that expressed pride, joy, and encouragement. The Xyler realized this was not simple playfulness. It was a social structure that strengthened cooperation, built trust, and allowed everyone to contribute their strengths. The Xyler tried to understand the humans' reasoning. Why did they not rely on hierarchy or rigid control? Why did each individual seem free to make choices, yet all worked toward the same goal? They observed the humans discussing problems, sharing ideas, and sometimes debating solutions. Conflicts were rare, but when they happened, humans resolved them calmly, finding compromise rather than confrontation. It became clear that then humans had developed a kind of intelligence that the Xyler could not calculate. It was not based purely on logic or strength, but on observation, creativity, empathy, and adaptation. Each human was a problem solver in their own way, and together, they formed a network of skills and knowledge far more versatile than any single individual dot as the day passed. The Xylar saw humans engaging in tasks that seemed impossible for such a small group. They cultivated food in rocky soil, collected water from hidden streams, and constructed tools from scratch. They even created small machines powered by wind and sunlight, each one crafted to meet a specific need. The humans were engineers, scientists, and farmers, all at once, blending skills seamlessly. One moment, a storm swept across the settlement. The wind was strong, carrying dust and debris. Yet the humans did not panic. They adjusted shelters, secured supplies, and protected one another. The Xylar watched as they worked, amazed at their calm and resourcefulness. When the storm passed, they immediately returned to their tasks, repairing minor damage and celebrating the teamwork that had kept them safe. The Xylar began to feel something unexpected. They were designed to analyze, to calculate, to measure everything in terms of energy and efficiency. But humans could not be measured in this way. Their ingenuity, resilience, and cooperation went beyond data, beyond numbers, beyond any algorithm. The Xylar were forced to admit that humans possessed qualities no sensor could fully capture as evening fell. The humans gathered in a communal area. They shared food, stories, and laughter. The Xylar observed quietly, unable to fully participate, but fascinated by the sense of unity. Every individual mattered, every contribution was recognized, and yet no one sought dominance. The humans had created a society that was functional, adaptable, and harmonious. It was a society built not on fear or control, but on trust, creativity, and mutual respect. For the Xylar, it was a revelation. They had explored countless worlds, met species that were technologically advanced or biologically unique, but they had never seen life that combined intelligence, adaptability, and emotional depth so seamlessly. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving, creating, and learning in ways that no one could have predicted. The first contact ended with mutual curiosity. The humans had made it clear that they were willing to share knowledge, show the aliens their world, and learn about the visitors in return. The Xylar departed that night with their minds full of new understanding. They had discovered something extraordinary, a species that was capable of more than survival, more than invention, more than mere existence. Humans were capable of greatness, and the Xylar had only just begun to understand what that meant. As the ship left the planet, the Xylar recorded everything. Every movement, every gesture, every innovation was documented. They knew that when they returned to their own people, their report would be met with disbelief. Humans were not just another intelligent species. They were remarkable, unpredictable, and extraordinary in ways that no one could have imagined. The Xylar's first encounter had changed their perception forever. Humans were not just another species to observe. They were a testament to resilience, creativity, and the power of cooperation. And as the stars stretched before them, they realized that this small colony on a distant, barren planet had revealed something that would challenge their understanding of life itself. The Xylar would return. They had to. There was so much more to learn, so much more to witness. But for now, they carried with them a single undeniable truth. Humans were unlike any species they had ever met, and the galaxy had yet to see the full measure of what they were capable of. The aliens hovered above the colony for hours, unable to believe what they were seeing. The humans were not just surviving, they were thriving in a way that seemed impossible for a place so isolated and harsh. The Xylar had expected basic shelters, crude tools, maybe a few attempts at farming. Instead, they found a community that had mastered nearly every aspect of life on the planet as they moved closer. The Xylar's sensors detected faint energy signatures coming from small devices scattered throughout the settlement. These devices were subtle, not drawing attention to themselves, but their complexity was undeniable. Some collected water from the air and condensed it into storage tanks. Others purified and recycled waste with efficiency the Xyler had rarely seen. Even small tools, the Xyler realized, were multifunctional, crafted with careful thought and precision. The aliens landed near one of the larger structures and decided to observe more closely. Humans were everywhere, gathering, building, repairing, learning. Each action seemed purposeful, yet natural. There was no chaos, no disorder, just life happening in a rhythm that was both flexible and coordinated. The humans noticed the Xyler's interest and began demonstrating some of their technologies. One of them led the aliens to a small device that looked like a simple box, but when activated, it powered a series of lights, fans, and small machines across the room. The Xyler ran diagnostics, analyzing materials, energy flow, and efficiency. They expected primitive designs, but what they found was ingenious engineering. Every component had a purpose, yet each could be adapted for multiple uses. The aliens moved deeper into the colony, discovering more remarkable systems. They saw human-made wind turbines, crafted from local materials, providing energy without harming the environment. They saw irrigation channels that maximized the scarce water resources, delivering moisture precisely where it was needed. They saw storage systems that kept food safe for months, yet were simple enough for anyone in the colony to repair or improve. Everywhere the Xyler looked, humans were inventing, testing, and improving. A group of humans was working on a transportation device that moved supplies across rough terrain without engines or fuel. They used gravity, pulleys, and clever mechanics, turning ordinary objects into a functional system. The Xyler could not believe that a species so isolated had figured out solutions that some advanced civilizations had struggled to perfect. It was not just their technology that impressed the aliens. It was the humans' approach to learning. They experimented constantly, observing outcomes, correcting mistakes, and refining their designs. If a device failed, they didn't discard it. They analyzed it, discussed it, and found a better solution. Failure was not shameful. It was a step toward improvement. The Xyler had never seen such a systematic, intelligent way of approaching problems that combined both creativity and logic. The aliens moved to a larger structure, a place that appeared to be a communal laboratory. Humans were working on a device that could extract minerals from the soil without causing environmental damage. Another group was engineering a system to store energy from the sun for nighttime use. It was clear that humans had been doing this for decades, continuously learning and refining their techniques. One of the humans noticed the Xyler observing a small experiment and explained it with gestures and sounds. The aliens struggled to interpret at first, but the humans' patience and clarity made communication possible. The explanation was simple but elegant. We take what we have, improve it, share it, and make life better for all. It was not just about technology. It was a philosophy. Humans worked for the good of the community, not for personal gain or recognition. The Xyler began to explore further, moving into areas of the colony that seemed private at first glance. Here, they discovered even more astonishing technologies. Humans had constructed small vehicles that ran on alternative energy, complex communication systems that allowed them to coordinate tasks across the entire settlement, and storage systems that preserve information and knowledge. All of it was developed without the help of advanced alien civilizations, relying solely on human creativity, observation, and cooperation. One human demonstrated a communication device that transmitted messages across the settlement instantly. The Xyler analyzed the device and realized that humans had developed a network that rivaled some of the Xyler's own systems. It was small, efficient, and powered entirely by renewable energy. What struck the aliens most was the simplicity. Every device could be understood and repaired by anyone. ensuring the community was never dependent on a single person or skill. The aliens spent hours watching humans innovate. A group was testing water purification systems, experimenting with different filters made from local materials. Children observed, taking notes mentally, asking questions, and learning through curiosity rather than instruction. The Xyler realized that knowledge was passed naturally through participation, observation, and experimentation. Education was not formal, it was lived. Humans were not just inventors, they were teachers, learners, and collaborators all at once. Every action contributed to the collective intelligence of the colony. The Xyler had never seen a society where every individual mattered in such a tangible way. This was not just survival, it was evolution in action. As evening approached, the Xyler noticed that humans continued to work, but also to rest, share stories, and enjoy one another's company. Laughter, music, and simple games filled the settlement, creating a balance between effort and enjoyment. It was clear that humans valued both productivity and well-being. They did not sacrifice one for the other. They integrated both seamlessly. The aliens realized that this balance was part of what made humans so extraordinary. Their ingenuity was not just in technology, it was in the way they lived, collaborated, and adapted to challenges. Every system, every invention, every task was connected to the larger goal of improving life for the community. Humans were creating a society that was both resilient and thriving, even in isolation. Later, the Xyler observed a human working alone, building a small machine. Another human joined, offering suggestions and adjustments. They tested it together, then improved it further. The aliens realized that innovation was a social activity. Humans shared ideas freely, built on one another's work, and constantly sought improvement. There was no competition for status, only a shared goal, survival and growth. The Xyler began to question their own assumptions. They had believed that technology required large populations, abundant resources, and guidance from experienced civilizations. But these humans had none of that. They were isolated, limited in resources, yet capable of ingenuity that surpassed expectations. The Xyler felt a mixture of awe and humility. As night fell, the colony glowed softly with lights powered by solar and wind energy. The aliens could see humans resting, talking, and sharing meals. Yet some were still working on small projects, experimenting quietly in the dim light. It was clear that learning and innovation never stopped. Humans were driven by curiosity, necessity, and a desire to improve, not by orders or external pressures. Before leaving for the night, the Xyler recorded every observation. They had discovered a species that was adaptable, inventive, and capable of collaboration at a level they had never seen. These humans had not only survived in harsh conditions, they had transformed their environment into a place of opportunity. Learning and growth. The aliens' data suggested something remarkable. Humans had evolved to be problem solvers, not just for themselves, but for their entire community. They combined creativity, intelligence, and empathy in ways that were almost impossible to quantify. The Xyler realized that this was why humans had survived where others might have failed. Their strength was not in numbers, technology, or aggression. It was in ingenuity, cooperation, and spirit. As the ship lifted from the surface, the Xyler reflected on what they had seen. They had entered expecting to find a simple colony, perhaps struggling to survive. Instead, they found a thriving society, full of life, learning, and innovation. The humans had exceeded every expectation, and the aliens knew that their understanding of intelligent life would never be the same. The first contact had revealed more than technology. It had revealed the essence of humanity, the ability to adapt, to create, to share knowledge, and to thrive under any circumstance. The Xyler had seen intelligence before, but never like this. Humans were extraordinary, not because of their machines, but because of the minds, hearts, and collaboration behind them. And as they left orbit, the Zealer knew one thing for certain. They would return. There was more to learn, more to understand, and more to witness. Humans had opened a door to something greater than survival. They had shown that ingenuity, cooperation, and determination could overcome even the harshest challenges. The aliens had come seeking life. What they found was something far more remarkable, a species that had taken every limitation and turned it into opportunity. A species that could teach the galaxy what it truly meant to thrive. The Xylar had been observing humans for days, quietly studying their movements, their inventions, and the harmony of their community. They had expected ingenuity, but the humans exceeded every expectation. It was time to understand just how far their abilities went. Not out of malice, but out of curiosity, pure, analytical curiosity. They wanted to test humans, to see how they responded to new challenges, and to see if the ingenuity they had observed could handle unexpected situations. The first test was subtle. A small mechanical device was left in the path of a group of humans, one that required adjustment to function properly. The Xylar watched as the humans discovered it, examined its parts, and began experimenting. They tried moving pieces, combining them in new ways, and observing the results. Within minutes, the device was working, improved beyond the original design, and integrated into the colony's systems. The Xylar were stunned. Many intelligent species they had encountered required instructions, repeated teaching, or trial and error over long periods. Humans needed none of that. They observed, understood, and adapted, applying logic and creativity at the same time. Their approach was not rigid. It was flexible, intuitive, and remarkably effective. Encouraged by the first success, the Xylar introduced more complex challenges. They created small engineering problems, blocked water channels, malfunctioning energy collectors, and delicate transportation devices that required careful adjustments. Each time, the humans analyzed the problem, discussed possible solutions, and implemented them. The aliens noticed something extraordinary. Humans did not see failure as defeat. When a solution did not work immediately, they tried again, often in a completely different way. There was no frustration or despair, only curiosity and persistence. They learned faster than the Xylar expected, and the solutions they found were often more elegant than anything the aliens had designed in one experiment. A mechanical cart carrying water was placed on an uneven surface. The Xylar expected the humans to simply repair it or rebuild it the same way it had been before. Instead, the humans observed the terrain, adjusted the cart's wheels, modified the suspension, and even added a small counterweight to balance the load. When it moved, it carried more water than originally intended, smoothly navigating the rough terrain. The aliens recorded the entire process, astonished at the speed and creativity of the humans' problem-solving. Next, the Xylar tried testing cooperation and strategy. They scattered materials needed to construct a bridge across a small ravine. The humans immediately assessed the situation. Some gathered materials, others measured distances, while a few experimented with structural designs. They debated ideas, tested prototypes, and then combined their findings into a final structure. The bridge was completed in hours, stronger than necessary. An entirely functional dot. It wasn't just skill that impressed the Xylar. It was the way humans worked together. Each individual had the freedom to think creatively, yet all contributions were valued. There was no hierarchy enforcing who could do what. Leadership was temporary, natural, and based on knowledge or insight rather than authority. Everyone could contribute, and the results were better because of it. The Xylar decided to raise the stakes. They introduced problems the humans had never seen before. Energy systems that required abstract thinking, puzzles combining engineering and logic, and even ethical dilemmas about resource distribution. The humans approached each situation calmly, analyzing, experimenting, and discussing. They didn't panic when unfamiliar tasks arose. Instead, they treated every challenge as an opportunity to learn and improve. One particularly complicated test involved a water purification system designed to fail unless specific conditions were met. The humans observed, noted the problem, and began experimenting. Within hours, they had repaired it and added modifications that allowed the system to work in multiple conditions. The aliens were amazed. Humans didn't just fix problems. They improved the system for future use. They anticipated difficulties before they arose. Another test involved transporting fragile goods across a rocky area. The Xyler expected cautious, careful handling, perhaps with some trial and error. But humans observed the terrain, devised a pulley system, and even used teamwork to create a rolling mechanism that allowed multiple loads to be transported at once. When one attempt failed, they didn't stop. They adjusted, redesigned, and succeeded. Their resilience was extraordinary. The Xyler began to understand that humans' strength was not just intelligence or creativity. It was adaptability. They could handle problems from multiple angles, using intuition, logic, experience, and collaboration all at once. This combination made them unpredictable in ways the Xyler had never encountered. They could not anticipate every solution a human would find, because humans combined strategies and thought in ways no algorithm could calculate. Even the youngest humans participated in these experiments. Children observed, asked questions, and tried solutions alongside adults. Mistakes were part of learning, and each mistake became a lesson for the entire group. Knowledge was shared freely, without fear of judgment. The Xyler realized that this was a society built on collective intelligence, where every member contributed to the growth and success of the whole. Humans also demonstrated creativity in unexpected ways. When faced with a problem that required improvisation, they used materials the Xyler had not considered. Rocks, branches, simple tools, everything became part of the solution. The aliens watched as a broken energy collector was repaired using a combination of mechanical ingenuity and natural materials. The repair not only worked, but enhanced the efficiency of the system. The Xyler were fascinated by humans' ethical reasoning. Some challenges involved limited resources, where they had to choose how to distribute food or water. The humans did not hoard or compete selfishly. They discussed needs openly, made fair decisions, and ensured that everyone in the community benefited. Even when resources were scarce, the humans found solutions that balanced survival, fairness, and efficiency. One night, after a full day of observation and testing, the aliens gathered to review their findings. They had seen humans face countless challenges, from mechanical puzzles to ethical dilemmas. Each time, humans responded with intelligence, creativity, and empathy. Their success was not occasional, it was consistent. It was clear that humans were capable of solving problems in ways the Xyler could not have predicted. The next day, the aliens introduced a challenge combining multiple skills: engineering, strategy, and ethical reasoning. Humans had to design a system to store water, transport it across rough terrain, and allocate it fairly among all members of the colony. The humans immediately began working. Some built containers, others tested transportation methods, while a few calculated distribution to ensure fairness. The Xyler expected slow progress, perhaps errors, but within hours, the system was functional, efficient, and equitable. The aliens realized something profound. Humans did not just survive by adapting. They thrived because they improved, collaborated, and innovated. They faced challenges not as threats, but as opportunities. They shared knowledge, valued contribution, and applied creativity and ethics together in ways the Xyler had never seen before. By the end of the day, the aliens could no longer contain their admiration. They had tested many intelligent species before, but none had approached this level of ingenuity and cooperation. Humans combined technical skill, emotional intelligence, creativity, and adaptability in a way that was completely unique. The Xyler began to reconsider what they thought they knew about life and intelligence in the galaxy. Even as the humans rested that night, the aliens continued to observe quietly. They noted how humans reflected on the day's work, shared stories, and prepared for the next challenges. Their curiosity never ceased. Their energy never waned. And their ingenuity continued to grow, building upon each success, each failure, and each lesson learned. The Xyler had entered this colony, expecting to study a small, isolated group. Instead, they had found something extraordinary, a species that combined intelligence, creativity, collaboration, and resilience in a way that seemed almost limitless. Every test confirmed the same truth: humans were remarkable, not because of technology alone, but because of the minds, hearts, and spirit behind it. As the aliens prepared to leave for the night, they recorded every observation. They had witnessed a species capable of solving problems in ways that defied prediction, improving systems, sharing knowledge, and thriving under every challenge. Humans were not just surviving, they were shaping their world, constantly learning and continuously improving. The Xyler knew that the humans' potential was far greater than they had ever imagined. Each test, each challenge, only revealed more possibilities. They had seen ingenuity, collaboration, and empathy combined in ways that no other species in the galaxy had displayed. And they understood something important. Humans were not just exceptional, they were unstoppable in ways the galaxy had yet to recognize. The aliens left that night with a mixture of awe and respect. They had expected to observe, to study, and perhaps report findings. Instead, they had witnessed greatness. Humans had shown that even in isolation, even in harsh conditions, life could achieve brilliance when intelligence, creativity, and cooperation worked together. The first tests were over. But the Xyler knew this was only the beginning. They had discovered a species that could teach the galaxy what it meant to thrive, adapt, and innovate. And as they looked back at the colony glowing softly under the night sky, they knew they had barely scratched the surface of human potential. The Xyler had watched humans for days, fascinated by their creativity, cooperation, and problem-solving skills. Yet, something still puzzled them. How could a species so isolated, limited in resources, and living on a harsh planet develop abilities and ingenuity that rivaled advanced civilizations? The aliens had seen intelligence before, but humans were different. There was something more, something deeper that went beyond technology and skills. The humans seemed to sense the question lingering in the air. One morning, they gathered the Xyler in a quiet place at the edge of the settlement. The aliens didn't understand what the humans were doing, but the calm, deliberate gestures made it clear they wanted to explain something important. A human stepped forward, holding a simple device, a small mechanical model that mimicked the colony's energy system. With slow, careful movements, they demonstrated how it worked, but also how they had built it. The Xyler watched closely, noting not only the engineering, but also the thought process behind it. The humans had not just built a system, they had analyzed the problem, imagined possibilities, learned from failures, and improved it over time. Then, through gestures, sounds, and careful illustrations, the humans began to reveal the deeper truth. They did not hide knowledge. They shared it openly. They explained, in their own way, that the reason they could survive, adapt, and thrive was because of their history. On their original home planet, humans had faced countless challenges. Natural disasters, harsh climates, scarce resources, and unexpected threats had shaped their ancestors. Each generation had learned from the previous, developing skills and resilience necessary to overcome difficulties. The Xyler realized the humans were not exceptional because they had suddenly become clever or strong. They were exceptional because they had been forged by struggle. Every challenge had left a mark, teaching them creativity, cooperation, and the ability to adapt to any situation. Humans had survived when others might have failed, and each survival had added to their collective knowledge and ingenuity. The humans showed how they passed this knowledge down. Children learned not only by being taught, but by observing, experimenting, and participating. Mistakes were encouraged as long as lessons were learned. Every human contributed to the growth of the colony, whether through solving problems, creating tools, or sharing ideas. Knowledge was not owned. It was shared freely, growing stronger with each contribution. One of the humans demonstrated a simple experiment, a small device designed to filter water. They showed how they had tried several methods before finding the one that worked best. The Xyler could see the trial and error, the careful observation, and the incremental improvements. It was not luck. It was a method, a philosophy of learning, testing, and improving. The aliens began to understand why humans were unpredictable. Their ingenuity was not a product of natural talent alone. It was the result of history, struggle, observation, and collaboration. Humans had been shaped to think, adapt, and invent in ways no other species had been. They had developed resilience, resourcefulness, and creativity as survival tools, and those tools had become second nature. The humans continued to explain. They showed how the colony had been built with these principles in mind. Every decision, every tool, every system was designed not just for survival, but for improvement. If a solution worked today, they asked themselves how it could work better tomorrow. If a tool solved one problem, they considered how it could be adapted for another. This constant refinement, combined with shared knowledge, allowed them to achieve results. The Xyler had found astonishing. It wasn't only technology that impressed the aliens. Humans had developed ways to manage risk, to cooperate under pressure, and to stay calm in unpredictable situations. The Xyler noticed how humans handled even dangerous or unexpected events with careful thought and teamwork. Their society was built on mutual support, collaboration, and a deep sense of responsibility toward one another. One evening, the Xyler observed a human repairing a broken water collector while others gathered food, guided by signals and gestures that coordinated the whole group. Each person acted independently, but in harmony with the rest. There was no chaos, no wasted effort, only collective intelligence in motion. The aliens realized that this ability to combine independent thought with cooperation was a cornerstone of human resilience. The humans also revealed how they approached problems creatively. They didn't just copy solutions, they invented them. They used the materials at hand in clever ways, often repurposing objects to meet new challenges. If one method failed, they tried another. If one approach succeeded, they improved upon it. Innovation was constant, and it was fueled by necessity, curiosity, and the drive to improve life for the community. The Xyler were fascinated by how humans treated each other. Even in moments of scarcity, competition was rare. Instead, humans communicated, shared ideas, and worked toward solutions that benefited everyone. This social intelligence, combined with their technical ingenuity, made them far more capable than any single measurement could capture. The humans demonstrated another principle: preparation. They didn't rely on luck or chance. They learned from past difficulties, anticipated challenges, and planned carefully for the future. Yet they remained flexible, ready to adapt if things didn't go as expected. The Xyler noticed how this balance of preparation and adaptability allowed humans to thrive in conditions that would have overwhelmed other species. In one striking example, a sudden storm disrupted part of the colony. Humans quickly organized teams to secure resources, repair shelters, and maintain systems. They worked together calmly, sharing knowledge and tools. The Xyler observed as a group of humans devised a temporary bridge for water channels, allowing irrigation to continue even in harsh conditions. They didn't wait for orders. They acted, solved, and adapted Dot through gestures and demonstrations. The humans conveyed one final truth. Their strength lay not in technology alone, but in the combination of mind, spirit, and collaboration. They had learned to turn limitations into advantages, obstacles into lessons, and challenges into opportunities. Their ingenuity, resilience, and empathy were the result of a history that demanded survival, creativity, and cooperation at every step. The Xyler were silent for a long time, processing what they had learned. Humans had revealed not only how they survived and thrived, but why they were exceptional. Their resilience was born from struggle. Their ingenuity came from necessity and learning. Their cooperation and empathy were the result of understanding that survival depended on more than individual effort. The aliens realized something profound. Humans were not just a clever species. They were a species forged by experience, shaped by adversity, and strengthened by collaboration. Every invention, every system, every act of problem-solving was a reflection of this history. Humans had learned to face challenges with courage, curiosity, and creativity, and they had turned survival into growth, hardship into opportunity. As the Xyler left the colony that night, they looked back at the glowing lights of the settlement, the soft hum of activity, and the steady rhythm of human life. They had expected to find a community that survived by chance. Instead, they had discovered a species that thrived through ingenuity, cooperation, and resilience. They recorded every detail, knowing that their reports would astonish their civilization. Humans were not just capable, they were extraordinary. They had shown that intelligence, creativity, and collaboration, combined with a history of struggle and adaptation, could produce results that no amount of technology alone could achieve. The Xyler realized that the humans' potential was limitless. They had survived isolation, scarcity, and harsh conditions not because they were stronger, faster, or more numerous, but because they had learned to use every challenge as a lesson. Their minds were trained to adapt, to innovate, and to cooperate, and their spirits were strengthened by a shared sense of purpose. And so, as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the Xyler understood the truth. Humanity was remarkable, not just for what it could do, but for why it could do it. Their resilience, ingenuity, and collaboration were products of experience, history, and determination. They were a species capable of turning obstacles into opportunities, and they had only just begun to reveal what they were truly capable of. The aliens departed, carrying with them the knowledge that humans were unlike any other species they had encountered. They had discovered not just survival, but a blueprint for thriving, a combination of mind, heart, and spirit that could overcome almost any challenge. And in that knowledge, the Xyler felt something rare deep, unshakable respect for the humans, and the realization that the galaxy had barely begun to see what this species could achieve. The Xyler had spent weeks observing the human colony, studying their ingenuity, creativity, and cooperation. Every day had revealed something new inventions, clever solutions to problems, and ways of working together that no alien species could have predicted. And now it was time to leave Dot as their ship lifted from the ground. The Xyler took one last look at the settlement below. The humans were working, repairing tools, checking water systems, and preparing for the night. Others were gathering together, talking, laughing, and sharing meals. Even in the glow of evening, the colony was alive with activity, full of energy and purpose. The aliens reflected silently. They had come expecting to study a simple group of beings struggling to survive. Instead, they had discovered a species that was extraordinary in every sense. Humans had survived harsh conditions, limited resources, and isolation, not by chance, but through resilience, creativity, and cooperation. They had built a society that thrived on learning, adaptation, and shared knowledge. The Xyler were amazed by the humans' approach to challenges. Every obstacle the aliens had introduced, whether technical, logistical, or ethical, had been met with calm, intelligence, and innovation. Humans did not panic when confronted with the unknown. They analyzed, experimented, collaborated, and often found solutions the aliens had never imagined. What struck the Xyler most was the combination of traits that made humans unique. They were inventive, yet thoughtful. They were curious, yet disciplined. They were independent, yet deeply cooperative. Every skill was amplified by their ability to work together and their willingness to share knowledge and ideas. The aliens had never encountered a species so balanced in intelligence, creativity, and empathy. The humans' resilience left the Xyler in awe. Even when resources were scarce or conditions were harsh, humans adapted. They did not complain, despair, or give up. Instead, they used what they had, learned from mistakes, and improved their systems. Each challenge became an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to become better as the ship moved farther from the planet. The Xyler reflected on what they had learned about humans. It was not only their technology or tools that were remarkable. It was the way they thought, the way they learned, the way they worked together, and the way they treated each other. Their ingenuity was inseparable from their humanity, their spirit, their empathy, and their determination to survive and thrive as a community. The aliens thought back to the first moments of contact. Humans had approached with curiosity, calmness, and confidence. They had not feared the unknown visitors, nor had they sought to attack or hide. From the beginning, they had been willing to observe, learn, and communicate. That willingness to understand and engage had been the foundation of everything the Xyler had witnessed. The Xyler also remembered the experiments they had introduced. Every test had shown the same pattern. Humans faced challenges with intelligence, patience, and creativity. They shared knowledge freely, worked together to improve solutions, and adapted constantly to changing circumstances. Even when a solution failed, they learned from it and tried again, turning mistakes into progress. The aliens realized that this combination of traits was rare, perhaps unique. Humans were not only intelligent, they were adaptable, creative, cooperative, and resilient in ways that made them unpredictable. No algorithm, no rigid structure, no rigid rule could anticipate what a human might do when faced with a new problem. Their unpredictability was not chaos, it was brilliance. As they left the planet behind, the Xyler considered what this meant for the galaxy. Humans were young compared to many species, yet they had achieved extraordinary things. They had survived conditions that might have defeated others, built systems and societies that were highly efficient and resilient, and learned to thrive in isolation. The aliens realized that humans were not only capable, they were exceptional. The colony below became a distant glow, but the Xyler's memories of the humans remained vivid. They remembered the children experimenting with tools, the adults solving complex problems, the laughter and music that filled the air, and the calm, focused energy that carried the settlement forward. Humans had taught them something more than science or engineering. They had taught them about determination, adaptability, and the power of working together. The aliens considered the humans' history and how it shaped who they were. Generations of survival, struggle, and learning had forged a species capable of extraordinary innovation and cooperation. Every hardship had strengthened them. Every failure had been a lesson, and every challenge had built a foundation for growth. The Xyler realized that humans' ingenuity was inseparable from their experience, their history, and their spirit. As the ship continued into the stars, the Xyler reflected on their own civilization. They were advanced, knowledgeable, and powerful, yet they had rarely seen a species with a combination of resilience, creativity, and cooperation the humans possessed. They understood that humans could achieve things beyond what technology alone could provide, because their strength was in the mind, heart, and collaboration that drove every action. The Zealer began to communicate with their own species, preparing to report their findings. They knew that many would be skeptical. How could a small, isolated group survive and innovate so effectively? How could they adapt so quickly, solve problems with creativity and empathy, and thrive under harsh conditions? But the Xyler had witnessed it firsthand. Humans were not an ordinary species. They were extraordinary. As the galaxy stretched endlessly ahead, the Xyler realized that humans were a species to be respected, admired, and watched closely. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and determination made them a force that could influence the future in ways few species could. The aliens felt a mix of awe, caution, and hope. Humans had shown that intelligence combined with resilience and cooperation could achieve greatness. The Xyler reflected on the lessons they had learned. Humans had demonstrated that survival was more than strength, technology, or numbers. It was about creativity, collaboration, learning from mistakes, and constantly seeking improvement. It was about combining mind and spirit, intelligence and empathy, innovation and cooperation. This combination, the aliens realized, was rare, and it made humans a species unlike any other. As the ship moved farther away, the Xyler recorded one final observation. Humans had transformed a harsh, isolated planet into a thriving colony. They had solved problems, built systems, shared knowledge, and cared for each other in ways that no species had done before. They had proven that the power of intelligence and collaboration, guided by experience and determination, could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. The aliens knew that this was only the beginning. Humans were young, their civilization still growing, their potential still largely untapped. If they continued to learn, cooperate, and innovate, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The Xyler felt certain that the galaxy had only seen a fraction of what humans were capable of, and that future encounters would reveal even more extraordinary abilities. Finally, the Xyler left the sector, carrying the memory of the colony, the ingenuity of its inhabitants, and the knowledge of what humans could achieve. They would report their findings, and the galaxy would learn that humans were a species to respect, a species to admire, and a species capable of shaping the future. As the stars stretched into the distance, the aliens felt a sense of wonder and humility. They had expected to observe, to measure, and to record. Instead, they had witnessed brilliance, resilience, and the human spirit in action. The humans had not only survived, they had thrived. They had not only learned it, they had invented. They had not only adapted, they had inspired. And in that realization, the Xyler understood something profound. Humans were extraordinary, and the galaxy would never forget the lessons they had taught.